Hello and welcome to Chibi Read. Today I will read the story of Rapunzel. Rapunzel is also a fairy tale that was written down by the brothers Grimm. I will just wait a bit for everyone else to join as well. I think I don't have to tell you about the Grimm brothers by now. Did so plenty in the last videos. And yeah, this story is also, hey there Screech, a bit more on the short side, like most of the Grimm tales are. Basically because it's a fairy tale to put your little children to sleep. So usually you don't tell them a story that is far beyond 20 minutes. The Little Mermaid from Hans Christian Andersen was pretty long and not really suitable for a good night story, but stuff like Rapunzel, Hansel and Gretel, Rumpelstiltskin, they are pretty much okay for good night stories. So, I would say, hey there, Cola. Now everyone is assembled. Yeah, I would say, let's start with today's fairy tale. Rapunzel. Hey there. So, okay, once again. I should have closed the window. That should be okay. So, Rapunzel. There once lived a man and his wife who had long wished for a child, but in vain. Now, there was at the back of their house a little window which overlooked a beautiful garden, full of the finest vegetables and flowers. But there was a high wall all around it, and no one ventured into it, for it belonged to a witch of great might, and of whom all the world was afraid of. One day that the wife was standing at the window and looking into the garden, she saw a bed filled with the finest rampion, and it looked so fresh and green that she began to wish for some. And at length she longed for it greatly. This went on for days, and as she knew she could not get the rampion, she pined away and grew pale and miserable. Then the man was uneasy and asked, "What is the matter, dear wife?" "Oh," answered she, "I shall die unless I can have some of those rampion to eat that grow in the garden at the back of our house." The man, who loved her very much, thought to himself, "Rather than lose my life, I will get some rampion, cost what it will." And in the twilight he climbed over the wall into the witch's garden, plucked hastily a handful of rampion, and brought it to his wife. He made a salad out of it once, and ate it to her heart's content. But she liked it too much, and it tasted so good that the next day she longed for it twice as much as she had before. If she was to have any rest, the man must climb over the wall once more. So he went in the twilight again, and as he was climbing back, he saw all at once the witch standing before him, and was terribly frightened as she cried with anger eyes, "How dare you climb over into my garden like a thief and steal my rampion? It shall be the worse for you." "Oh," answered he, "be merciful rather than just. I have only done it through necessity, for my wife saw your rampions out of the window, and became possessed with so great a longing that she would have died if she could not have had some to eat." Then the witch said, "If it is all as you say, you may have as much rampion as you like, on one condition. The child that will come into the world must be given to me. It shall go well with the child, and I will care for it like a mother." In his distress of mind, the man promised everything, and when the time came, when the child was born, the witch appeared, and giving the child the name Rapunzel, which is the same as Rampion. She took it away with her. Rapunzel was the most beautiful child in the world. When she was 12 years old, the witch put her in a tower in the midst of a wood, and it had neither step nor door, only a small window above. When the witch wished to be let in, she would stand below and would cry, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Rapunzel had beautiful long hair that shone like gold. When she heard the voice of the witch, she would undo the fastening of the upper window, unbind the plaits of her hair, and let it down 20 ells below, and the witch would climb up by it. After they have lived thus a few years, it happened that as the king's son was riding through the wood, he came to the tower, and as he drew near, he heard a voice singing so sweetly that he stood still and listened. It was Rapunzel in her loneliness, trying to pass away the time with sweet songs. The king's son wished to go to her, and thought to find the door in the tower, but there was none. So he rode home, but the song has entered into his heart, and every day he went into the wood and listened to it. Once, as he was standing there under a tree, he saw the witch come up, and listened while she called out, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Then he saw how Rapunzel let down her long tresses, and how the witch climbed up by it, and went into her, and he said to himself, "Since this is the ladder, I will climb it, and seek my fortune." And the next day, as soon as it began to grow dusk, he went to the tower and cried, "O Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." And she let down her hair, and the king's son climbed up by it. Rapunzel was greatly terrified when she saw that a man had come up to her, for she had never seen one before. But the king's son began to speaking so kindly to her, and told how her singing has entered into his heart, so that he could have no peace until he had seen her herself. Then Rapunzel forgot her terror, and when he asked her to take him for a husband, she saw that he was young and beautiful. She thought to herself, "I certainly like him much better than my old great Gothel." And she put her hand into his hand. She said, "I would willingly go with thee, but I do not know how I shall get out. When thou comest, bring each time a silken rope, and I will make a ladder. And when it's quite ready, I will get down by it, out of the tower, and thou shalt take me away by thy horse." They agreed that he should come to her every evening, as the old woman came in the daytime. Though the witch knew nothing of all this, once Rapunzel said to her unwillingly, "Mother Gothel, how is it that you climb up here so slowly, and the king's son is with me in a moment?" "Oh, wicked child!" cried the witch. "What is this I hear? I thought I have hidden thee from all of the world, and thou hast shall betrayed me." In her anger she seized Rapunzel by her beautiful hair, struck her several times with the left hand, and then grasping a pair of the shears in her right hand, snip snap, and the beautiful locks lay on the ground. And she was so hard-hearted that she took Rapunzel and put her in a waste and deserted place where she lived in great woe and misery. The same day on which she took Rapunzel away, she went back to the tower in the evening, and made fast the severed locks of hair into the window hasp, and the king's son came and cried, "Rapunzel, Rapunzel, let down your hair." Then she let the hair down, and the king's son climbed up. But instead of his dearest Rapunzel, he found the witch looking at him with wicked, glittering eyes. "Aha!" cried she, mocking him. You came for your darling, but the sweet bird sits no longer in the nest. She sings no more. The cat has got her and will scratch out her eyes as well. Rapunzel is lost to you, and you will see her no more." The king's son was beside himself with grief, and in his agony he sprang from the tower. He escaped with life, but the thorns on which he pulled out of his eyes. Then he wandered blind through the woods, eating nothing but roots and berries, and doing nothing but lament and weep for the loss of his dearest wife. So he wandered several years in misery, until at last he came to the deserted place where Rapunzel lived with her twin children that she had borne, a boy and a girl. At first he heard a voice that he thought he knew, and when he reached the place from which it seemed to come, Rapunzel knew him, and fell on his neck and wept. And when her tears touched his eyes, they became clear again, and he could see with them as well as ever. Then he took her to his kingdom, where he was received with great joy, and there they lived long and happily. The end. Interesting that in this story Rapunzel actually had two bastard children. Not really common in the 19th century. Thanks. But still interesting. To be honest, I totally forgot about the last part of this fairy tale. In my defense, it's more than 30 years ago that I last read this fairy tale myself. Nonetheless, it was a nice fairy tale. Let's see, is there anything else that would be nice for the next time? We already had Cinderella. I guess I will find a new story for next week. There should be still plenty of stories left. Anyways, thanks for dropping by and listening to today's stream. I hope you enjoyed it. And have a nice start in the weekend. Stay healthy. See you soon. Bye.